The cameras had barely cooled from the last blow when the room erupted again. Rashida wasn't just angry. Rashida was unraveling. Her chest rose and fell with heavy breaths, and her hands slammed against the reunion table so hard the microphones picked up every thud. "I'm not doing this with y'all," Rashida screamed, her eyes darting toward the producers. "Y'all think you slick. You think you can sit me next to her and let her disrespect my whole marriage? This is a setup." The producers tried to keep a straight face, but the cast knew exactly what was happening. "Rashid to love and hip-hop 'cause I came in and ate your ass up. Your show got cancelled. Girl, me, I increased ratings, me and my husband, contrary to what anybody went to believe. We all know who the queen and the king is of love and hip-hop Franch. Wasn't fighting Yandy anymore, Rashida was fighting her own reflection, her history replaying in front of the world, and the louder Rashida shouted the more, it sounded like desperation. Yandy didn't move, Yandy didn't yell, Yandy didn't even flinch. She leaned back in her chair, legs crossed, sipping her water like the chaos wasn't even touching Inger. That calm composure, that smirk tugging at the corner of her mouth. It was psychological warfare. Every time Rashida screamed, it only made Yandy's silence feel heavier, sharper. The fans watching at home saw it instantly. Twitter exploded with edits. Rashida shaking, Yandy sipping water. Captioned, "When obsession meets composure." The hashtags wrote themselves. Hashtag Team Yandy. Did this woman just really say for me to stay out her business? Me stay out your business? I don't even talk about your business. I don't do podcast. I will never for my lips to call that woman a friend. The thing why hashtag RASHIDA pressed #DNA reunion. Then came the moment that shifted the storm. Kirk stood up. He hadn't said a word all night, sitting in the shadows like a ghost haunting his own marriage. But now seeing his wife spiraling, Kirk adjusted his jacket and tried to step into the fire. "Y'all not going to do my wife like this," Kirk said, voice steady but eyes nervous. The room froze. Everyone knew what it meant when Kirk spoke up. For over a decade, his name had been tied to humiliation, the hot tub, the side baby, the earrings, the DNA test. Kay's presence was gasoline. And the moment he opened his mouth, fans online lit up the comments. Not Kirk trying to defend when he the reason for all this. Rashida clung to Kirk's words like a lifeline. "Thank you," she shouted, pointing across the table at Yandy. "See, my man stands by me. That's real loyalty. That's what you'll never have." Rashida thought it was a win, thought the sight of Kirk beside her would strengthen her case, but it backfired instantly. Nobody in that room or watching at home saw Kirk as loyalty. They saw him as the walking receipt of everything Yandy had been dragging Rashida about. Loyalty. The man who swabbed his own child on camera because he wasn't sure it was his. The man who turned a hot tub scandal into Atlanta's biggest punchline. Fans didn't clap for Rashida. They dragged her harder. Memes flew across TikTok. Screenshots of Kirk standing awkwardly beside Rashida with the caption, "This the loyalty she bragging about." Yandy finally leaned forward, her voice calm but razor sharp. "Funny," Yandy said, eyes locked on Rashida. "How you trust him now? But you ain't trust him back then without a DNA test." The room gasped. It wasn't loud. It wasn't screamed, but it cut through the air like a blade. Rashida's face drained of color, her lips trembling as she tried to form a comeback, but there was none. Because truth didn't need volume, it needed timing. The cast shifted uncomfortably. Spice let out a low whistle. Erica covered her mouth to hide a smirk. Even Mendez, usually calm, muttered under his breath, "Damn, that's cold." The producers zoomed in close, catching every flicker of emotion on Rashida's face. It was the kind of moment reality TV lives for, the kind of moment fans replay for years. Online, the clip went viral before the segment ended. "Not the DNA drag part 2. One fan tweeted, "She really said it to her face again." Rashida tried to recover. She screamed about respect, about being the queen of Atlanta, about carrying the franchise on her back. "Without me and Kirk, there is no show," she shouted, her finger jabbing the table like a gavel. But the audience didn't buy it. As Rashida shouted about crowns and kingdoms, Yandy just tilted her head, waiting for the perfect moment to strike again. And then Yandy did. "Crowns don't come from ratings," Yandy said coolly. "Crowns come from respect. And baby, respect don't live in your house." Gasps echoed across the room. Rashida shook her head furiously, denying it, but the cracks in her armor were already showing. The more Rashida yelled, the clearer it became that her power wasn't coming from truth. It was coming from panic. The fans online were ruthless. TikTok edits showed Rashida screaming side by side with old clips of Kirk's hot tub scandal. Instagram pages posted screenshots of Rashida's meltdown with captions like "Queen of what? Humiliation." Twitter was flooded with side-by-side memes. Yandy's Tom face next to Mortal Kombat's finisher, but Yandy wasn't finished yet. She leaned forward again, her tone softer now, almost like a warning. You keep talking about loyalty, about who's a queen, Yandy said, eyes narrowing. But let's not forget y'all weren't the only ones swabbing in Atlanta. There's another DNA test nobody wants to talk about. The room froze. Even the producers looked stunned. Rashida's face twisted in shock. What are you talking about? She snapped, her voice cracking with fear. But Yandy didn't answer. She sat back, folded her arms, and let the silence do the damage. The cast erupted in whispers. Spice gasped, Erica clutched her chest. And the crowd shifted like they had just witnessed an earthquake because this wasn't shade anymore. This was a bombshell. Online, theories started instantly. Fans clip at the moment, posting, who else got DNA tests in Atlanta? Comments flooded with guesses, conspiracies, and old receipts. Some swore Yandy was hinting at another secret from Kirk. Others thought it tied to another cast member entirely. Whatever it was, the seed was planted, and the audience was hooked. Rashida slammed the table again, pointing at Yandy. You lying. You making stuff up. That's what you do. You lie for a storyline. But the damage was already done. The tremble in Rashida's voice betrayed her fear. Kirk tried to step in again, but his silence spoke louder than words. He didn't deny it. He didn't shut it down. He just stared at the floor and the cameras caught it all. The silence stretched. The weight of that new accusation hung in the air like smoke after an explosion. And for the first time all night, Rashida didn't look like the Queen of Atlanta. She looked cornered. Yandy.com, as ever, gave her a final glance and whispered, "This ain't the last DNA test, baby." Atlanta still got questions. The room erupted in chaos. Cast members shouting, producers scrambling, security stepping closer. But the cameras kept rolling, catching every second. Because this wasn't just drama. It was history in the making. The DNA drag had already been crowned. But this new bomb. This was about to rewrite Atlanta's entire legacy. Rashida's mouth dropped open. You lying? You making things up again? Rashida screamed, but her voice cracked, betraying her fear. Kirk shifted uncomfortably beside her, his eyes darting to the floor, refusing to meet anyone's gaze. That silence was more powerful than anything Yandy had said. Because when a man doesn't deny it, the room assumes it's true. The cast whispered furiously. Producers exchanged frantic looks and fans online exploded with theories. Wait, was there another DNA test? One tweet read, who else was involved? Instagram pages dug up old clips of Kirk and Rashida, splicing them together with the new accusation like they had just cracked a hidden code. Rashida pounded the table again, tears forming at the corners of her eyes. Don't play with me. Don't you dare sit here and lie on my family like that. You crossing the line, Yandy. But the louder Rashida yelled, the smaller she looked. Everyone in the room and everyone at home saw the shift. They saw Rashida drowning while Yandy swam circles around her with quiet precision. The meltdown wasn't just a moment anymore. It was the headline. Yandy leaned back, arms folded, smirk and shaken. If it's a lie, why does he look like that? She asked, tilting her head toward Kirk, who sat frozen, jaw tight, refusing to defend his wife. The entire cast gasped. The camera zoomed in on Kirk's face, catching every flicker of discomfort. The silence was suffocating, broken only by whispers and muffled reactions. Online, fans clipped the moment and captioned it, not Kirk folding under pressure again. TikTok edits plastered his face next to the words, 3 earrings never lies. Rashida finally broke. Her voice cracked, her body shaking as she shouted, y'all trying to destroy my family? You trying to take me down cause you jealous cause you could never be me? She pointed at the producers, at Yandy, at anyone she could blame. But it didn't matter. The narrative had already shifted. What was supposed to be her defense turned into a spectacle, and her meltdown became the weapon she handed to her enemy. Meanwhile, Yandy stayed calm, her voice dropping to a whisper that carried louder than any scream. Asterisk, 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 and any scream. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. Nobody has to destroy you, Rashida. You've been doing that all on your own. I'm just reminding the world what they already saw. The crowd behind the cameras gasped, some even clapping despite producers waving for silence. The weight of Yandy's words sat heavy in the room. Undeniable, irreversible. By the time producers finally called for a pause, the energy was electric. Rashida sat trembling, Kirk silent beside her, and Yandy collected untouchable. But the damage was done. The internet was on fire. Hashtags multiplying by the second. Theories spinning out of control. And fans demanding answers about this mysterious second DNA test. This wasn't an argument anymore. It was a cultural storm. The kind that turns cast members into legends and humiliations into history. Members into legends and humiliations into history. As cameras zoomed in on Rashida's tear-streaked face, shaking with rage, and Yandy's calm smirk, framed like a queen who didn't need a crown, the cliffhanger wrote itself. The world wasn't asking who won. They were asking what else was about to be exposed. If Yandy was still holding back, and if another DNA bomb was waiting to drop, then Atlanta wasn't ready for what was coming next. The silence after the producers called for another break was thick enough to choke on. Rashida slumped in her chair, arms crossed, lips pressed so tightly they turned pale. Her body trembled with rage and humiliation, the kind of anger that doesn't cool down but fierce, grow sharper with time. She wiped her face trying to hide the tears, but the cameras caught everything. Across from her, Yandy looked untouched, legs crossed, chin tilted, sipping her water like she had just won a championship without breaking a sweat. The contrast was brutal. One woman unraveling, the other untouchable. When cameras rolled again, the tension snapped instantly. Rashida shot out of her chair, fingers stabbing the air, her voice cracking through the set like lightning. "You will never sit above me in this city. Do you hear me? Never." The words were sharp, but they sounded more like a plea than a command. Desperation wrapped in volume. The cast flinched at the outburst, some burying their faces in their hands, others smirking behind cupped palms. Spice muttered, "Lord, this woman losing it for real." But Yandy didn't flinch. She tilted her head calmly, eyes fixed on Rashida, and answered with a line that sliced the room in half. "Respect isn't about the city, it's about the truth. And the truth don't lie. Even when you do." The reaction was instant. A couple of cast members clapped, despite producers motioning for silence. Erica gasped, covering her mouth. Even Mendez looked stunned, shaking his head slowly like he couldn't believe it. And online, within seconds, that line became the new anthem. Twitter was flooded with clips captioned, "Respect isn't about the city." TikTok edits paired Yandy's.com delivery with slow-motion shots of Rashida's red face, turning the reunion into a viral storm. Fans crowned it one of the coldest reads in love and hip-hop history. But Rashida wasn't finished. She threw out a wild swing, desperate to drag someone else into the fire. "You always want to talk about me. But let's talk about you and your so-called marriage. Let's talk about how your man told people he couldn't even stand you. He don't love you, Yandy. He tolerates you. You standing up here acting like you got something real when everybody knows you don't." Her voice cracked again. But the venom was real. The jab was personal below the belt, meant not to expose, but to wound. The room shifted uncomfortably. Even producers looked uneasy. But Yandy didn't fold. She gave a slow, mocking laugh, the kind that only fueled Rashida's fury. Then she leaned forward, eyes sharp as glass. "At least when my man disrespects me, it's not in front of millions. At least I don't have to watch reruns of my humiliation every season just to get a check. Respect matters more than a title. And baby, all you've got is a title nobody respects." The words landed like a knockout punch. Rashida froze, her mouth opening, but no sound coming out. The cast gasped. Spice shouted, "Oh my God," and the audience behind the cameras erupted in whispers. Fans online clipped it instantly, flooding timelines with the caption, "All you've got is a title nobody respects." But Yandy wasn't done. She reached into her bag, pulled out her phone, and pressed play. Suddenly, the speakers filled with familiar sounds. The infamous hot tub footage. Kirk, earrings shining, women laughing around him, the ultimate symbol of disrespect. The cast gasped again, some burying their faces, others shaking their heads. Rashida's face drained of color as the footage echoed through the room, her eyes filling with tears. She couldn't stop. Everyone had seen it before, but this time it wasn't just a flashback. It was a weapon. The reaction was brutal. Online lit up instantly. TikTok edits spliced the hot tub footage with clips of Rashida screaming, "I'm the queen," mocking her every word. Instagram pages posted mess with her face next to clown emojis. Twitter threads debated if Rashida should have even shown up. It wasn't just a drag, it was a dismantling, live and in real time. Rashida broke. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she screamed at producers, "Y'all set me up. Y'all trying to make me look weak? I've been holding this show down for years, and this how y'all treat me." She turned to Kirk, shaking his arm. "Say something. Tell them it's a lie." But Kirk just stood there silent, jaw tight, eyes on the floor. His silence screamed louder than any words. The cameras caught it all, zooming in close as Rashida begged for a defense that never came. Yandy.com, as ever, leaned forward with one last checkmate. Her voice was low, sharp, undeniable. "Why do you have all this energy for me? but none for him. Why is it easier to call me Dusty than to call him disrespectful? The room froze. The cast gasped, whispers filling the air. It was the question everyone had been asking for years, the one that cut deeper than any DNA drag or hot tub receipt. Rashida stumbled, tried to shout, but her voice cracked too much. The silence after Yandy's words drowned her out completely. By now, the internet had already decided the verdict. Hashtag Team Yandy trended within hours. Edits crown Yandy the queen of the reunion, and memes mocked Rashida's meltdown as the collapse of her credibility. For years, Rashida had clung to the crown of loyalty and longevity, but now it was slipping, replaced by Yandy's calm precision and unshakable poise. As the night dragged on, the meltdown spiraled further. Rashida threatened to walk off set, screaming that edits would ruin her, that producers were conspiring to erase her legacy. She shouted at the audience, at the cast, at the cameras, but it was too late. The footage was already locked, the humiliation was already sealed, and no amount of deflection could erase the truth burned into the reunion that night. The final moments were chilling. Yandy stood up, adjusting her dress, looking down at Rashida with a smirk. "I don't need to prove anything to you," she said calmly. "The truth is already on tape. The world has seen it. The world has judged it. And the world knows exactly what it is." She walked off set, her heels clicking against the floor like punctuation marks. The cameras followed, capturing every step of Yandy's untouchable victory. Rashida left behind, collapsed into her chair, sobbing quietly while Kirk stood helpless beside her. The producers didn't cut the cameras. They let the image linger. The queen dethroned, the crown shattered, the silence louder than her screams. Online, fans declared at the end of an era. This wasn't just another fight. It was the burial of a storyline, the collapse of a reign built on humiliation. And as the credits rolled, one thing was clear. Rashida versus Yandy wasn't just a reunion argument. It was a cultural reset. The crown had shifted, the fans had spoken, and the receipts had buried a queen who once thought she couldn't be touched. But if love and hip-hop has taught us anything, it's that no one stays down forever. Pride always claws its way back. And humiliation, it always breeds revenge. The war wasn't over, it was just getting started. War wasn't over, it was just getting started. War wasn't over, it was just getting started.